Hi, this is Misha, and as promised, we took the SIG P320 M17 out to the range.
Good. How about if I also take that safety?
Also, just as kind of a comparison, I brought out my Beretta M9A1.
Okay, S&B. Definitely less risky.
Which is really the most modern version of the Beretta in military service. Now, we've already done a video talking about the M17 commercial edition here, so this is just more of a shooting and history. So I brought out a couple of other guns. We have the original M9 here. This is a 90s. This is really the first commercial edition that Beretta released for the M9. Pretty much the same as the A1, but a few minor changes. And I've got the SIG P226 MK25, which is a Navy version. So I have these two out. I'm not going to go too much into the M9 history because that's for another video. I think we've already got a couple up. But as you know, the M9 was adopted officially in 1985. This was actually after quite a bit of testing. It kind of got started with the Air Force. The base 92, Beretta 92, began development in the early 70s and went into limited production around 1975, and then really full production in 1977. Now, the 92 had a lot of the older features. It would be updated to the 92S, which would have a decocker, and then the 92SB, which would have this modern style of mag release, Browning style. And then finally we would have the 92SBF, which was the version that went into the XM9 trials in 1982, 83, 84, in that time period. Basically the SBF had a chrome lined barrel and a more durable finish and a few other minor changes to make it acceptable for the military. This would be known later as the 92F. This would be adopted as the M9 in 1985. The results would be challenged. They would do another round of trials, the XM10 trials. This would actually lead to the 92FS being adopted as the M9, which was the update here with a few things. Mainly it had the extra safety features of the slide and frame to make sure a crack would not result in things going flying off. Anyway, like I said, it's not really here nor there for this video. These really started to see widespread use by 1990 and were very common by the Second Iraq War and in the First War in Afghanistan. This is the early version. It has a 4.9-inch barrel, and we weigh at about 2 pounds 2 ounces unloaded. 15-round mag, double stack, single feed. It's part of that Wonder 9 series. So we have an alloy frame, we have a vertically checkered back grip and front, lanyard loop, various mags were used. We have an ambidextrous safety. Acts also as a decocker. Typical sights, typical Beretta, no rail under the barrel. You get the idea. Double, single action, and like you already saw, decocker, firing 9mm NATO 9x19. So this would be standard for the U.S. Army and Air Force, who spearheaded it. The Marines and Navy would also use it in smaller numbers, as would the Coast Guard. Although the Marines were a bit of a holdout, they still like their 1911s, which would lead to the M45 and the M45A1, which we have videos on that. You get the idea. But the Army and the Air Force were the big users. and hundreds of thousands were purchased, especially if you count foreign military aid. Now, the big contender in the XM9 trials was this gun here, the SIG P226. In fact, the Beretta and the SIG came down neck and neck. They both really passed with equal efficiency. They both had a couple of shortcomings. Nothing's perfect, but they're basically the same gun. You have a double action, single action trigger. You have a decocker, although it's not ambi. Slide releases here. You get the idea. Buttons here. We have 15 round mag. Double stack again. We have another alloy frame. We have a slightly shorter barrel, but basically the same thing, and we're still firing 9mm. The U.S. Navy, specifically SEALs and other special forces, would actually go with this version here in limited numbers, the SIG Mark 25. There was also the M11, which was adopted as a compact version that was a militarized version of the 228, which is this gun here, just with a shorter barrel slide and grip. So this would see some military service and a lot of police service. So moving on to the 21st century, I chose the M9A1 to bring out just because we haven't had it out in a while. This is a modernized version which first appeared around 2006. It was essentially a COTS, an off-the-shelf acquisition used in limited numbers by the U.S. Marine Corps. It's your regular M9, but it has the addition of a single slot pick rail underneath here for devices. It also has updated checkering, both horizontal and vertical on the back strap and front strap. And a new pattern of magazine, still 15 shot, but it is PVD coated to better work in environments like Iraq. By the way, I have Crimson Trace grips on this particular one, which were mil-spec. Actually, Tim, you should remember these. These came from the Army years ago. They were cheap, so I put them on, and they're very fitting for this gun. And so yeah, those were used in limited numbers. But by 2009, 2010, the M9s were aging. The U.S. military was ordering more M9s as late as 2012, but by 2014, a program spearheaded by the Army and Air Force was set in motion to replace the M9. Now, this wasn't the first attempt. There was the joint combat handguns and all that had gone beforehand, but this one succeeded. It eventually led to the MHS program, which this gun here, the SIG P320, was declared the winner on January 19th, 2017. Like I said, the program began in 2014, and they were at first just taking off-the-shelf guns, testing them out to see what new developments happened with handguns over the years. And then they laid out requirements for what they wanted, and manufacturers would submit guns. This is one of them, obviously. Another famous one is the Glock 19, which was commercially released as the the 19X, which was originally the XM17 that Glock submitted under the MHS. Beretta tried the M9A3, but this was formally rejected in 2015. They really didn't want to go with another Beretta, so they were pretty well out early. The reasons for going to new guns, this is actually quite a bit lighter. We're at just under 1.5 pounds, so a little over 2 pounds for one, 1.5 pounds for this one. Barrel is 4.7 inches, so only about 1/4 inch shorter, but it is quite a bit lighter. The gun itself is about 1 inch shorter tip to tip than the Beretta, which helps. And the idea was to make it more modular, where we could either have a compact or a full size. We also have a longer rail under the barrel than the M9A1 with multiple slots. They also wanted a removable rear sight where an RMR type thing could be attached. They wanted a safety. They wanted this loaded chamber indicator here. And essentially the gun needed to be completely ambidextrous and all that. smaller, slimmer grip, and above all, they wanted it to be cheaper to acquire. The Beretta, while quite forward-thinking for the 1970s and 80s, is more expensive today than a more modern polymer gun such as this. Now, I'm not going to get into the controversy around the XM17 trials. I do tend to agree with Chris Bartacci that there was some kind of hinkiness going on, but either way, this was what was adopted. The first guns went to the 101 Airborne, and they were taking delivery around November of 2017. This first batch was about 2,000 guns, and the projection as of right now is to order about 420,000 guns. That includes the XM17 with the full-length barrel, and M17 with the full-length barrel, and the M18, which has a slightly shorter barrel at 3.9 inches and also a slightly shorter grip. This has a 17-round double-stack mag. The M18 has a 15-round, so the grip is about a ½ inch shorter. The majority of this purchase will go to the Army, who ordered just under 200,000. I think it was about 195,000. Then the Air Force and Navy would take up the next bulk, with the smaller number going to the Marines. And while the Coast Guard says they are going to pick up some M17s or M18s or both, they haven't really released a number yet. Now keep in mind, the Coast Guard has been using the SIG 229 DAK for some time. They replaced their M9s, at least for the majority of them, some time ago. It's early days, of course. This is mid-2018 October, so we'll see where this goes. But right now, the projection is nearly 500,000 planned to be purchased, again, with just under half going to the Army. So that's where we're at. This is why this gun is here. It's more modular, it's more adaptable, it's lighter, and above all, it's cheaper. It also has night sights as standard. To keep in mind, most of the M9s that have been in service, some of them since the 90s, were wearing out. I mean, we went through several major conflicts and deployments. So how did these two shoot together since we had them out? Well, we tried 3 different types of ammo. We had some really nice hot SIG Sauer 9mm. We also had some MagTech and S&B. Now, with either gun, we experienced no stoppages at all, 100% reliability, perfectly good accuracy according to Jay, no problems there. And it was good. I mean, it's kind of those things, it's a pistol. I'm mostly into the history. They feel like pistols. I will say the M9, or in this case M9A1, has a very smooth slide. This is very smooth compared to this, which isn't rough, but it's very clearly a polymer slide. You can even hear it. The spring is also a little stiffer. And of course, all of your mass, for the most part, all of your metals up here, with this being a very lightweight polymer. So as this recoils back, I notice more flip. Whereas the Beretta is more evenly balanced, being metal here. I mean, it's obviously still had some flip, but the way the barrel works on this, because it's the P38 style, the barrel never moves or tilts up and down or tips. This does like a Glock, tipping up and down. So I felt like this had more flip versus this. However, the flip side to that is, pun intended, the grip on this is less aggressive and can get slick with sweat, whereas this, being polymer with checkering all around, is a surer grip. It's also a little bit slimmer, so I felt like even though this was flippier, you could get a better grip on it. So that's something to be considered. I also like that the safety on this is frame mounted, 1911 style, versus the slide mounted safety on the Beretta, which is known to cause some people to have issues. Trigger, this is, double, single action. Single is very nice on these. Double is heavy but smooth. With the SIG here, you just have essentially a single action, although it's more of a Glock style. It's a perfectly good trigger for a polymer gun, and it is made of metal. So I really didn't notice a major difference. The Beretta trigger feels better dry firing, but out shooting, they were seemed about the same. So again, it's a pistol. We experienced no problems, as I said, but we didn't do anything near conclusive. I mean, a military pistol is supposed to be able to make it 6,000 rounds with a life expectancy of about 25,000. We obviously just put a couple hundred rounds through, so it's really nothing. I will say, looking back, I don't have my original commercial 320 anymore, but it seems like these mags were a little easier to load than that was, and this gun seems a little smoother and better. The trigger is not quite as nice on that commercial gun, but many other things about this I do like more. So that's kind of the report. I mean, it's fine. I get it is lighter, a little bit more compact, and it is cheaper. I mean, if you go to buy one of these, even the commemorative or whatever edition, it's cheaper than a brand new Beretta. And it's also cheaper than SIG's previous Mark 25. So we have nothing really negative to say. It's just a polymer pistol. It's definitely not our favorite, but it's not the worst. I'll just conclude by saying, some people say, what's the big deal about a handgun? It's a secondary item. Why is the U.S. military, why are people so thinking about it so much? The thing is, the U.S. military has been in actual combat for quite some time, and the handgun has proven very useful in close quarter combat scenarios, urban environments, or even room clearing type situations. Not to mention it's useful in some naval applications, as well as Navy SEALs going ashore and stuff. Sometimes a pistol is better. It also acts as a PDW for people on base or people who don't use a firearm as their primary gun. It's not heavy. It's not something they have to worry about maintenance on. The ammo is not heavy. And finally, of course, it's a last line of self-defense. And there are more than a few accounts of soldiers serving over in Iraq where their M4s or even M16A4s or whatever jammed up, even temporarily, and they had to switch to their sidearm. So it's very likely that these guns have saved lives. So yes, a handgun is still important the way the modern combat. If anything, it's more important now, a handgun, than it would have been years ago. Warfare changes, and now close quarter urban combat is more common than it would have been, say, in World War I. So I still think a handgun is important, and since something is important, a military should definitely do its due diligence in picking the right gun for its soldiers. So was the P320 M17 the right gun, or would the Glock 19 MHS have been the right gun? That's a question. Well, if we have more to tell you about the M17, we will definitely do further videos, but as of now, our test firing went just fine, and we shot it up against the M9A1 just to have kind of a control, so we had no issues to report on. I know that's kind of a boring report, but there it is. As always, we appreciate you tuning in, and if you could, please click like and share the video. Also, if you really like to help support us, get to the range and such, please click on the link and check out our Patreon page. This is Misha, and we will catch you next time.